Welcome, friends. You are listening to the Mind Body Alchemy podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Miramontes. This is where intuition meets education in the realms of spirituality, fitness, mindset, and more, all to create lasting change. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the podcast. Let's talk about two of the things that come up in my coaching program that are linked together but have some distinct differences. If you are a people pleaser, this is the episode for you. If you are ignoring your own needs, this is the episode for you. If you find yourself putting yourself in situations that are compromising, unsafe, or outside of your personal values, if you're apologizing for things that you don't have fault for, but you're doing it just to keep the peace, if you're avoiding putting yourself out there in fear of judgment or simply because you don't think that you deserve anything from life, or you fear losing the things that you already have because you feel like you don't deserve them or you're unworthy of having them, if there are power imbalances in your relationships, if you lack the ability to speak up or stand up for yourself, or you're feeling really guilty when you do, or you're struggling to create and enforce boundaries, this is your episode. And most of all, if you are waiting to live your life until you are somehow better, smaller, have more money, have more success, are finally in a relationship, this is your episode. Stay with me here. We are talking about self-worth and self-esteem. This topic is near and dear to my heart because I work with my clients on unraveling all of these things for themselves, and it's touching and it's difficult. Everyone has these stories, and putting the pieces together so that they can see them is challenging, but it's so rewarding. And this goes deeper for me because as much work as I've done on this for myself, it wasn't until I started putting my notes together for this episode that I really took in how much my sense of unworthiness has impacted my life, especially my young life. So, in a nutshell, your self-esteem is how you measure yourself against the world. Does what you think of yourself matter to you most? Or do you factor in what others will think before you make decisions? Are you mentally free to wear what you want, love who you want, show up and say whatever you want, within reason, right? Don't be a dick. Buy what you want, eat what you want, cultivate talents and hobbies in the way that you want to without worrying much about what others will think of you because you like yourself. That's a pretty solid self-esteem. I'm not talking about steamrolling over people, not giving a damn about other people's feelings, or being a narcissist. But in general, you like yourself. You have a generally high opinion of yourself. You are awesome. Not only are you awesome, but you want everyone else around you to also be fucking awesome. That's my favorite part about being around people with high self-esteem is I can't help but catch that. So you share your awesome because you know it isn't in short supply. You know that the more you share your awesome with the world, the more it comes back to you. That is self-esteem. People with high self-esteem create environments and cultures that are fun, thriving, successful, and enjoyable. This is, of course, somewhat of a sliding scale. You can have a generally good self-esteem and know your own value in the world and still have some areas that you feel insecure about or that take up a lot of negative brain space. I mean, let's face it, none of us are perfect. We all have hangups. No one is living without some fear and doubt that looms over their heads. For many of my clients, it's no surprise that that lies in their body image and their weight. They are successful with work, education, friends, family perhaps, but there is this little nagging issue with their body that seems to always be holding them back from taking chances, going places, or enjoying their lives. If you've been hanging out with me for long enough, you know that I am going to tell you that this has nothing to do with weight in reality. But digging into what it really has to do with is how we do our work together as a team. Almost always, I would say always, we find some sense of lack in the worthiness department. And they feel that once they fix the weight issue, their lives will finally be perfect. For some, it feels like the last piece of the puzzle. They're pretty solid once they're finally in a place where they fully trust their body and lose the weight-related shame. For most, they discover that something else was lying under the surface, and the weight was a byproduct of whatever that was or is. Either way, self-esteem can be impacted by outside pressures, opinions, and influences if you allow it to, and we all allow it to some degree. Now let's talk self-worth. You don't have to have a rocking self-esteem to have a solid sense of self-worth, but you do have to have a solid sense of self-worth to have a truly high self-esteem, aka not one that is just a cover-up through a list of achievements, but truly liking yourself. You can know that you are inherently worthy and still wish you liked yourself better. Self-worth is knowing that you are worthy no matter what. Your existence says it is so. You are worthy of having your needs met. You are worthy of feeling safe. You are worthy of feeling how you feel, having emotions, being a human, of being seen and heard. It's larger than anything external. Your good deeds do not buy you more worthiness, and your bad decisions cannot remove it. It doesn't mean that you aren't held accountable for being an asshole, or that you don't owe apologies or reparations when you are one. It just means that your humanity is acknowledged and you deserve respect, even while being held accountable or while being disagreed with. Both a positive self-esteem and a high self-worth facilitate a sense of being worthy of taking the time to take care of yourself, avoid burnout, find and experience love, treat others and yourself with kindness. You are worthy of compassion and you extend that to others. You're allowed to screw up, get things wrong, make a big ass mess, and still you are worthy to exist in the world from a place of care. It helps you move on from the mistakes that you make and release the guilt once you've made amends. It also means that you are not better or worse than anyone else because of your job, status, beauty, age, race, income, body size, skin color, or any other qualifier that you can think of here, which is generally what society teaches us about our worthiness and is completely fucking wrong. So how does this show up in our lives, and why does it matter? Some of the ways that a low self-esteem and no sense of self-worth show up are in your clothes, for example. You do not deserve clothes that fit well and are comfortable only if you are a size small. You are worthy of that today. Yet so many people will avoid buying themselves clothes that fit. So many people will avoid throwing out the holey underwear and the stretched out bras and the stained t-shirt. They'll avoid shopping for a new wardrobe, and they'll continue to wear their clothes that are just too tight or last season or whatever, simply because they don't feel worthy of being in clothing that they enjoy wearing or is comfortable on their bodies. Your body is worthy of joyful movement, whether or not your flesh moves. And let's face it, it probably does. And regardless of how anyone else feels about that. Because the truth is, people are going to have an opinion. People are going to think that you should only be doing certain things in certain body types, that you should only be in certain positions if you're a man, or if you have a specific status or a specific education or a certain amount of experience. And so that narrative repeats in our head, and it stops us from going after the things that we want to do, the things that we're qualified for, the things that bring us joy and happiness, simply because of the program that everybody else is running, that we all signed up for without our permission. We all have these thoughts, these biases, and these things that hold us back. And the more we buy into them for ourselves, the more we reaffirm for future generations and everyone else around us that we are all unworthy of changing this story, that we all just accept the status quo and we're just willing to do the shitty thing and never live our lives fully or authentically in the way that we want to. You don't become worthy of loving the person staring back at you only if you have clear and wrinkle-free skin or a body that you love. You are worthy of that today. The worst of it is not that you only shrink your own life and in turn miss out on living it, but you perpetuate the inherited stereotypes that society has carved out for you because you aren't breaking the cycle. And I know that's not an easy ask. And so that is why when we look at this big picture and it gets so overwhelming, because we can't save everyone and we can't change the world because it's just too many things. But we can change how we show up in our own lives. And that might influence someone else because people are watching. And when somebody gives themselves permission to love themselves no matter what, that's powerful. That's contagious. And it does make a difference. Breaking this cycle means that we can change the statistics of 1 in 4 college-age girls that are living with an eating disorder. We can change that young girls are 3 times more likely to have sex before they're ready when they have a low self-esteem and sense of self-worth. We don't have to be part of passing on the belief that 7 in 10 girls feel that they are not good enough or don't measure up. Or that 98% of women don't believe they are beautiful. 98% of women don't believe that they are beautiful in a world that rewards, measures, and values a woman's beauty as a measure of her worth. These are just a few of the effects that a low sense of worthiness has, and the others aren't any less painful to learn about. So what can be done? And how do we change this? So much of it depends on the person, but I found a few commonalities that really seem to help. As someone who knows what it's like to live in every single one of those statistics above, with the exception of being a college-age girl with an eating disorder since mine started in middle school. And as someone who no longer feels unworthy, I know many of these things help me, and this is not by any means an exhaustive list. So I would love to hear what your thoughts are and some of the ways that you have worked on this yourself, or some things that you're trying that you're finding are helpful as well. So without further ado, some solutions. Observation of our thoughts. Sounds simple, right? Understand that you don't have to believe every thought that you think. You can look at them, pay attention to where you pick them up, and decide which ones serve you and which ones don't. You can live more consciously. Consider the collective influence that media, social media, what we purchase, and what we say has on us and others. Before you gossip, compare, or consume, consider the impact and decide if that's worth it. Clean up your social media feeds. Are you following a certain account because it adds value to your life? Would you have anything to talk about to this person in real life? Or are you just following that account as a way to compare yourself, feel like shit, and objectify them? If it's the latter, unfollow. If it's the former, perhaps seek out a deeper connection by engaging with that person or that account. But most of us are following these accounts because they present a life that is worthy of living through our skewed lens. And there's very little truth in any of that. It's a highlight reel. And we're using it to make ourselves feel bad, thinking that if we feel bad enough, we'll have the motivation to change this dark cloud of a life we have. When the reality is, changing our perception and how we treat ourselves is the first step to changing the dark cloud. Find your people. I cannot stress this enough. We need communities. communities that support us, uplift us, and give us an opportunity to uplift others as well. Surround yourself with people who believe in you and want to see you win. On the flip side, be someone who encourages others and lifts them up as well. Share knowledge and remind others of their worth. You have value to add to a conversation, so don't just be a taker. Add your perspective, listen, and be someone who shares. You don't have to solve every problem. You don't always have to give advice, but just being someone who is there for people, who encourages people, and who helps them get through their shit makes us all feel like we're a little less alone and therefore less broken. Catch yourself in the act. When you're thinking or saying unkind things to yourself, and then turn them around. You don't have to be toxic positivity here. Just be kind. If looking at your thighs in disgust is something you do regularly, begin to change that. You don't have to love the way that they look right now, but can you respect them for carrying you? Can you acknowledge their usefulness? Can you appreciate how you enjoy softness in other items like a cozy blanket or a puppy, and offer some of that same enjoyment to your own soft parts? Can you consider how your skin experiences the world around you like a cool breeze, the way water feels, and the warmth of the sun, or physical touch? Show your body and yourself that you are in it to win it. Get some exercise. Cultivate tools to manage your stress. Be willing to experience your emotions and release the urge to judge yourself for having them. Spend time with yourself. Keep your promises to yourself. Do hard things. Listen when your body asks for rest. Say no to things that steal your joy. And be sure to stop and experience joy when it's available to you. So many of us rush through that part. We want and want and want. And when we finally receive whatever it is that we were after, instead of sitting there and basking in the joy and the pleasure of that thing, we are moving on to the next thing, the next level of wanting, because that's what the world has shown you need to do. Consume everything around you, which is just ridiculous. Take time to pause and experience every small pocket of joy that is given to you. Research how these body trends, success measures, and other markers of success came about. Who started them and why? Who are they impacting? How are they impacting you? How are they impacting the collective? Who is benefiting the most from your pain? And do you want to give them your power, time, money, and that energy? If not, start changing that right now. Make different decisions. Use your money in other ways. Start living a life that is more in line with your values and less concerned about fitting in to other people's expectations. Even if you don't feel like you fit in, I promise you, you belong. Shout out to Brené Brown for that one, because she has great information on the difference between fitting in and belonging and which matters more. Realize that your pain is real. Hold space for that reality and realize that every time you experience that pain based on external validation, it costs you a piece of your inherent worthiness. That is something that you can only lose if you give it away. You are worthy. Aside from everything else in the world, you are worthy. Every breath you take exists as proof. When things get heavy, go back to the breath and remind yourself with each and every one that you are here, and that isn't an accident. So go take up space in the world. I promise you there is plenty of room, and I cannot wait to see what you do with it. That's all I have for you today. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please screenshot it, share it on social media, tag me. All my information is going to be in the show notes. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what your feedback is on this episode, what your takeaways were. If I missed the mark, I want to hear that too. I love to get your notes in my DMs and in my inbox. So please take a few moments and share it with me. If you liked this, rate and review the podcast. It helps me so much. It's a beautiful exchange of energy because it helps me to land in more sets of headphones, and it facilitates my ability to continue to create this content for you. So it's an easy thing, and I would very much appreciate it. I will see you next week. Bye, y'all.